I'm with David Gibbs, long-serving volunteer for Care Farnham, both as driver and until recently as duty officer. David, what got you into Care Farnham in the first place?
When I retired, and this goes back a few years ago now, in '94, it was the third time I retired actually. I came to live in this house, which we'd had since 1979, in actual fact, because I was born and bred in Farnham, but I originally lived down Ford Lane. But we bought this house and moved in 1979. And Roger Dew, who lived across the road, I think he was one of the founders of Care Farnham. And he approached me and said, just retire, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I should be relaxing and taking up my sport and things. And he said, well, I think you'll probably have plenty of spare time, so why don't you join Care Farnham? We're needing volunteers. And that's the way it started, actually. And so I've been doing it ever since. I've always kept it at a low level because that is the interesting part, because you meet so many different people. And I can be a bit of a chatterbox. And in actual fact, I like to, discover what people have done in their lives. And since they need assistance to go to hospital or wherever. And I've always found it very interesting. And it's brought me to the situation where I feel that I've had a pretty good life. I've enjoyed what I did and been very fortunate. And some of these people I take in the car, they've had rather sad lives, some quite disastrous. And I realise how lucky I am. And this is why I've always been quite happy to, help out with charities.
And so you've been a Care Farnham volunteer for over 30 years.
That's right.
Any particular memories that stand out among all these interesting encounters with people?
Oh, good question. Yes, there's quite a few. One was that a gentleman that struck me, who was absolutely amazing at mental arithmetic. And he was telling me the story, as a schoolboy, his mistress gave the whole class a stream of numbers. And she more or less said, write these down and tell me the answer. I want to know the first one to get the right answer. And so she reeled off all these numbers. And he gave the answer as soon as she'd finished. He didn't even write it down. And she said, I think you've been cheating somehow. And he said, well, how could I possibly cheat? And of course, he was correct. So this man had an amazing brain. He went into insurance after that. So a very good career he had. He was one of the successful people.
He's probably pretty good at calculating actuarial systems.
I should think so, yes. Yes.
And during your working life, you worked essentially abroad. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, yes, in my life, really. I started off basically in engineering. I went as an apprentice to Vickers Armstrong's, building aeroplanes. And then it was the era when national service went on. So after getting my qualifications, I could have got deferment till the age of 26. But when at the age of 21, I more or less got my basic qualifications. And into the drawing office at Weybridge, a chum of mine walked in his pilot officer's uniform with his pilot wings and told me all about his flying training and everything. And I was in the ATC at the time, Air Training Corps, and I'd learned to fly gliders and light aircraft. So I thought next time my deferment comes up, I'll turn it down. So I did. And that was one of the biggest disappointments in my life, actually, because I got down to Hornchurch, got through the tests, but they said, sorry, you're colourblind and they can't take you as a pilot. Well, I had to go and do my national service, so I went in as aircrew and flew around for 2 years at the Queen's expense around the world. So much so that I decided, and I stayed on another 6 years. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got married while I was in the RAF, so when the time came to leave, I won't go into the story about leaving because that's quite a saga. I decided that, yes, it would be nice to take my wife around the world if I could get a job overseas. So I went into a new career and trained as an air traffic controller with a company that basically worked overseas for the Crown agents. So, all these developing nations needed people to set up their air traffic systems and what have you. So that's the way it all started off. And throughout my life, yes, I've been mainly overseas. I have worked in this country, but mainly overseas. And as you get older, it's a stressful job, and you sort of move on to airport management. So I ended up managing airports. My last airport was Dubai in United Arab Emirates.
And I think you also managed other airports in the UAE, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I wasn't actually the manager in Bahrain. I was what they called the senior air traffic controller. And that was a wonderful experience because it was during the time they did the testing of the Concorde. And the Concorde was bought out by Brian Trubshaw, the chief test pilot. And I got to know him very well. And he came to me one day and said, we're going off to Singapore and back tomorrow. Have you got any of your lads who would like to come along? Because we'd like to, they're all experienced aviators, so he said it'd be good to get a report from them, of this particular flight. So I said, yes, of course. Got many volunteers, and off we went. Supersonic to Singapore and back, which was a fantastic experience. But one of the other experiences was sitting in the control tower at night time watching it take off. It was just like a rocket. And it zoomed off, and on clear nights you could see it over 50 miles out, just getting up to sort of about 50,000 feet. It was a magnificent sight, yes.
How amazing.
And then I went on, and I went to a place called Ras Al Khaimah, which is in the UAE. That was a lovely little airport, the best job in my life, actually. Because I had direct access to the Sheikh himself. And then later on I went down to Dubai Airport, which is one of the busiest in the Middle East there. And that was a wonderful experience.
I think, yes, if you've been to Dubai Airport in the last few years, it's probably changed quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely. It was quite interesting, actually, because, when you're looking to improve things in the airport, getting a second runway and better terminals. I was always in the planning with that. So to go back several years later, which I was invited to go back, it was quite interesting to see these things, how they developed. Yes.
And were there any parts of the world where being an air traffic controller felt like being rather a hazardous job, in that what you were working with was quite rudimentary?
Yes. I spent from the time, 1965 through to about 71, in Nairobi. Well, in East Africa, not all in Nairobi. And of course, it was in the infancy of, um, shall we say, development of radar and stuff, as it was, pertaining to air traffic control. We know radar come in during the Second World War. Yes, it was quite interesting because the Crown agents, were invited out there in our company to develop their system and train up the Africanization. So it was quite a rewarding job. But Nairobi, as you probably know, is 5,500 feet surrounded by mountains. So it was quite a stressful job because when the sort of tropical storms came through, even the radar was, didn't function that well. But yes, that was quite a challenging experience.
And in retirement, you've kept in the air because I understand you did something to celebrate your 90th birthday for Phyllis Tuckwell Hospice.
Yes, I did indeed. Yes, I retained a pilot's license, and I used to do a lot of private flying. This is, just privately. But yes, my 90th birthday, doing a bit of fundraising, I did one of these skydives, a tandem one. So I had somebody strapped to my back. So I went down to Netheravon, and we'd taken up to 14,000 feet, and out we went. Quite frightening, leaving the aircraft. But once you go down, it's literally only 30 seconds of free fall where you're doing actually flying. But the wonderful thing is, once the parachute opens, you're drifting down from about 7,000 feet. And it's absolutely a marvelous experience, providing we got a lovely day, which we did over the Wiltshire countryside.
Fantastic. And you say that you were born and brought up in Farnham. How has that changed over the last 90 years?
Oh, absolutely incredible. I can remember back when I was probably 11 or 12, and I went with our neighbours who always used to go hop picking. And Farnham was surrounded by hop fields. And there used to be particular hop fields. I don't know if you're aware, there's a pub used to be called the Bricklayers Arms at the bottom of Green Hill Road. It's now a Chinese restaurant. That was all fields all the way through there. Part of Brambledon's also, all hop fields. And we used to go down there picking hops. And my neighbours, they always used to say, well, when you pick the hops, we have big baskets, a bushel. And when you pick the baskets, fluff up the hops to make the rump. And then you can get another basket. Of course, the checkers used to come along and kick the baskets, and they all sank down again. So there's lots of tricks we used to learn. But that was a fascinating experience.
And what about wartime in Farnham? Do you have memories of that?
Yes, briefly, because Pine Ridge, there's a big house up there at Pine Ridge, where the Canadian soldiers were based. And they always used to smoke a cigarette called Sweet Corporal. And on the back of the packet were aeroplanes. So we used to save these. So we used to go up there very often, sort of asking these people, any empty cigarette packets? And they were very generous because they used to empty their packets and give them to us. And even we used to sneak one and have a crafty smoke.
Happy days.
Yes.
And in your volunteering time, you've been very involved in sailing at Frensham Pond.
Yeah, well, I've always been sailing. because one of the things overseas, um, I always sort of made sure that I enjoyed recreation, and the recreation was principally, that's where I learned to sail, was over in the what used to be called the Persian Gulf, and I've been sailing ever since. And this is the way I got into sailability, and this goes back in around about '95 time, um, because I decided to go walking with ramblers. And walking with the ramblers one day, and this gentleman, well, it was on my first or second walk, I believe, and a chap called Noel van der Verve. Van der Verve, that's right. And he said, "Oh yes, you know, what are you doing?" And I told him, "I've just retired." "Have you done any sailing?" I said, "Well, you do a lot of sailing, yes." And he said, "Well, we're looking for volunteers to come and help with the disabled sailing down at Frensham Pond." And he said, "Why don't you come and join us? Well, come and see what it's all about." So I went down there, enjoyed it, and been there ever since.
That's fantastic, and that's primarily with disabled, is it?
Oh yes, it is all disabled sailing. Yes, yeah.
And it must be wonderful to see the pleasure and fulfillment that gives everyone who does it, really.
Yes, well, it does. It gives me the same experience that I have with taking people, driving people to whatever facility they want. Yes.
Great. Well, David, that was fascinating and enjoyable.